Welcome, y'all. It's Wes with DIY Food Plot Pro. Thanks so much for joining us. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the major downside that I see on a lot of farms that are not able to be fixed up, set up correctly to harvest mature whitetails. My name is Wes. I run the channel DIY Food Plot Pro. I've got a Bachelor of Science in Agronomy. I farm for a living, and I have an 1,800-acre whitetail deer hunting outfitter business in western Kentucky. We cannot bait here, so we have to rely on these food plots to aid us in hunting these whitetails. A lot of my land is leased, and I know a lot of you guys lease as well. This is something that an awful lot of deer hunters have in common, is we don't have access to land that we actually own. We can do with what we want to. When I get new land to lease, I'm always very happy. I'm always excited to get out on that farm, start looking at it, identifying some areas that we want to target, maybe to put some food, maybe to increase some bedding, some access routes. What wind direction are we going to hunt? Setting the farm up for different wind directions. We can hunt this on multiple winds is all key things that go into setting up a farm. When I go onto a farm, there's very few farms that I have a full access to as far as being able to change for the whitetail hunting. Most of the landowners that I deal with, the lease money is a bonus, but I don't want you to change anything. Some of them will let me plant a food plot in a few spots. Very, very few of them will actually say, do what you need to fix the land to make it best for you. They see it as an investment. They see it as a return on their money. There's a couple of different landowners that are willing to spend money in order to make the hunting better, make it more desirable, and to have a long-term lease in place. But far and wide, most of these properties I am not able to do anything with. This is one of them that I'm on right now. This property is a marshy, swampy type farm. Behind me, you can see it's real thick back in there. And this sets up very, very well for hunting big whitetail bucks. We do well on this farm. We added a lot of food in a couple little spots where the landowner allowed us, where the farmer was not planting. And we really helped the farm by doing so. But in my opinion, this is a great farm, and I really enjoy hunting this farm. I enjoy working this farm, but this farm is reaching very little of its true potential. With a little bit of work, this place could be the hot spot in the neighborhood, and it really wouldn't take all that much. Adding some screening, increasing food, maybe adding a little bit of bedding around this outside edge, a little bit of TSI work, and we could take this farm from a good farm to the best farm in the neighborhood. And that's one of the most frustrating things, is looking at these properties, having access to these properties to hunt, and not being able to do what you know is going to increase the likelihood of you killing mature deer and pulling mature deer onto your farm. I was just on a farm down the road, and I was pulling cameras today, and I was looking at that farm, and I thought, man, there's a spot in the very back, have access road all the way around the property. It sets up pretty well, and for very little money, you could go in there and create a small food plot off that finger, back up, have a little bit of bedding, and then a TSI work right here, and you are going to have a absolute jam up hole that you can access in almost any wind direction. And then you could have your food, your bedding, your buck bedding, all of your woody browse in there that's going to hold deer in that area, concentrate them to that area, and then be able to hunt them easy in, easy out without bumping deer. That's such a huge part of this game. When we could bait, we could hunt a lot of those spots that were more advantage to us, okay? We could pull deer to areas that they might not rather be in because they were good for our access. Well, when you are in a no baiting zone like we are, you can't do that. We have to manipulate them through food plots, through bedding, and those are a couple different ways that we pull deer into spots that make that better for our hunting, rather than spots that are deeper in the farm, that have harder access issues, that make it really, really difficult for us to get in and get out undetected. Therefore, we're putting a lot of pressure on the herd and increasing the likelihood of the mature bucks turning nocturnal. I really enjoy getting out on these farms and looking at them and trying to decide what needs to be done on the limited amount that I can do. And I know a lot of you are in the same boat. You lease land, or maybe it's granddad's land or somebody in the family, and you can't really go in there and do what you really want to do to those farms. We can help them as much as we possibly can, but a lot of times we can, if we own the land, we can help the hunting by a large amount by just doing some small projects that increase access, that puts food in a location that's better for us. If we plant a quality food, the deer are going to be on the food. The issue is planting a food plot where we can access that plot and not bust out every deer in the woods. The farm that I was just on, I was explaining, it's got a beautiful little field, dead square in the center of it. And it's beautiful. It's a little bottom field, probably 1.5 acres, and it sets up fairly well. You could probably plant whatever you wanted in there and be okay as far as the wildlife damage and tree sap and other things like that we get with our food plots. But we could plant a high quality food plot in that location. But the problem is we've got about 600 yards in any direction to even get close to that food. Without a plan in place, there's no way to access that food without bumping deer in my part of the country. You're not going to walk 600 yards through timber. This is not a field, this is timber. You're not going to walk 600 yards through the woods and not bump deer, not let deer know that you're in there. That's why a lot of the food locations that we have are located near the outside of the property where we can access them easily without bumping deer. That is such a huge, huge, huge deal. A lot of folks don't realize if you start bumping deer, your hunting is over before it ever gets going. And I know there's a lot of people that go in deep and hunt. And the reality of it is, if you don't kill that buck in the first couple hunt, your chances are getting less and less and less as time goes on, because you're pushing deer, you're bumping deer, you're leaving scent in there. Those deer know that we're in there. And have you ever walked on a farm and found all the sign in the very back? This happens to me all the time. I'm sure it happens to y'all as well. Do you think there's a reason for that? Those deer know that we can't access that without bumping every deer in the woods off that area. I've got a lot of my farms, matter of fact, have a lot of really good areas, but they're all the way in the very back. And to be able to pull them, it works out really well. A lot of people just want to go right to that area. While that area might be a great spot for hunting, if I could put you in there with a helicopter, it would be wonderful. But the reality of it is you can't get in there without bumping all kinds of deer. And then you're teaching deer that you're hunting them. They're going to go nocturnal. They're going to leave your property. Then your hunting is going to go downhill even faster. If you're hunting on the edge somewhere where you have rock solid access in and out, you can hunt these deer all season long and not put pressure on. For me, as a whitetail guide, that's a huge, huge deal. I want my guys coming in very last in December to have just as good a chance as the guys that have it in November. I think we've proven that on the outfit. When I first started, I had some guys that were like, no, I ain't coming in December. There won't be any deer left. After hunting 2 or 3 years, they started seeing that, hey, the way this guy's hunting, he's not hunting deep. We're not going in 3/4 of a mile on these farms. We're hunting the outside of these farms, easy access, easy in, easy out, putting the food real close to those spots, making sure that we're staying away from those deep areas. Essentially, we're making a big refuge on our farms. It's a great thing to have a lot of land to hunt, but when your hands are kind of tied, it really gets frustrating, and that's the case with this farm right here. This wouldn't take a significant amount of money. If I own this farm, I would say less than a couple $1,000, I could have in this farm and have this thing set up unbelievable hunting. It already sets up pretty well. We're lacking some screening, we're lacking a little bit of access, and the main thing we're lacking is food. A little bit of TSI along the edge, but this doesn't need a whole lot. We've got a lot of depth right here. This thing goes back a long ways, and it's really good and thick back there. Perfect buck bedding, perfect buck bedding. We need to increase the thickness around the outside. We need to increase the food substantially, and then we need to add a screening to where we can access this in and out and not spook deer. They can see us coming right here for 800 yards. Behind you is an open field, and really works out good for access if you had some sort of screening there where you're blocking these deer that are bedded on this edge. They're not being able to sit there and watch you. Now, we access it using a fence line, so we're trying to use natural landscape as best as we possibly can to try to limit our access where they can't see us, and I think we've done well on this farm. but with just a little bit of work and a little bit of money, we could turn this thing into an absolute gem. If you need help with your food plots on your property, I've got a website set up, www.diyfoodplotpro.com. You can go there and you can get a monthly or a yearly subscription. You can text, you can email asking me questions, specific questions about your hunting property, and I will personally respond to those and try to help you to the best of my ability. If that's something that you're interested in, go to www.diyfoodplotpro.com. Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. Smash that like and subscribe button if you hadn't already.